We're continuing with our Mishna Yomi Masechet Peah. We're up to Perek Mishnah Daled. We're continuing discussing from the previous Mishnah which produce a poor Hamaretz is believed to say was given to him as a gift of Leket Shicha and Peah and therefore exempt from Maasrot, and which produce we do not believe were given to him when he says we do not believe when he says we're given to him as Leket Shicha and Peah, and therefore we have to be Maaser Tithe Misafek. Now the Rav points out to us that Midrabanan vegetables are chayav in Maaser. However, the Mishnah says, Ne'emanin al yerek chai, poor amei haratzot, the belief to say that raw vegetables were given to them as maaser ani, then ne'emanim al mevushal, but they're not believed to say about cooked vegetables that they were given to them as maaser ani, because generally they were given before they were cooked. Now the Mefarshim explained that if a poor person says, these cooked vegetables I received raw as maaser ani and cooked them myself, however, he is not believed to say that he received actual cooked vegetables as maaser ani, unless he only has a small amount of cooked vegetables. In such a case, he would believe that it was given to him as maaser ani, because it is common for a homeowner who forgot to set aside raw vegetables as maaser ani to take a few of the cooked vegetables from the pot and set them aside as maaser ani. However, it was only done with a small amount of vegetables because generally a person would forget. He would only forget to tithe a small amount of vegetables before he cooks it. He wouldn't cook such a large amount without tithing them. So generally it's only a small amount. Therefore we believe him by raw and we don't believe him by cooked unless it's only a small amount. That is the end of Mishnah Daled. Mishnah discusses now the distribution of maaser ani. So a farmer separates maaser ani from his crop and he stores it at the threshing floor. So poor people come to, unlike by leket shicha, peah, and peret, which they are left in the field and the poor people come and collect it themselves, poor people have to come to a threshing floor, and this farmer distributes the maaser ani to them. So the Mishnah lists certain minimum, because the Rav brings down, the Torah says, "Ve'achlo b'sharecha v'sav'o." The poor people eat in the gateway, and they are satiated. So the Rav learns from the Gemara, "Ten lo kidei sovo." You have to give the poor person enough for him to be satiated, which the Mefarshim explain is a day worth of food, which is 2 meals. So the Mishnah will list now different foods of measurements that this is the minimum of how much you have to give the poor person. However, the Mefarshim do point out this is all talking about during the harvest season. However, during the winter rainy season, when the farmer brings the produce into his storage rooms already, into his house to protect it, in that situation he's able to give out as he pleases. There is no minimum. The minimum only applies during the threshing floor season when you are still harvesting. And when distributing maaser ani, a farmer may not give each poor person at the threshing floor less than mechatzi kav chitim, less than half a kav of wheat. Again, a kav is a measure of volume. The kav se'orim, or a kav of barley. Rabbi Meir says chatzi kav. Minimum for barley is half a kav, not a kav like the Tanna Kama says. Kav v'chetzi kusmin. The farmer may not give each poor person less than a kav and a half of spelt. The kav golgrot, or a kav of dried figs. Manet vela, he cannot give less than a maneh of pressed figs. Now the reason we switch is because wheat, barley, spelt, and dried figs are normally sold by volume, therefore that's kav. However, pressed figs are sold by weight, and therefore it's maneh. Rabbi Akiva says peras, which the Rav explains is half a maneh. The minimum for pressed figs according to Rabbi Akiva is half a maneh. Chatzi log yain, the farmer may not give each poor person less than half a log of wine. Log is how you measure liquids. Rabbi Akiva says the minimum for wine is a quarter log. A quarter log. Revi'it shemen, the farmer may not give to each poor person less than a quarter log of oil. Rabbi Akiva omer shminit, the minimum for oil is an eighth of a log. Ushar kul perot, anything else, any other produce that is not eaten as a meal or during a meal, which the poor person has to sell now in order to buy food for his meal. Amar Abba Shaul says a poor person must be given enough of the produce kedeshim kirem beikach ben mazon shtei seudot, that he could sell it and use the money from the sale to buy food for 2 meals. And the Rab does point out regarding all the measurements stated in our Mishnah, halacha ki Tanna Kama, halacha ki Abba Shaul, the halacha follows Tanna Kama, not like Rabbi Meir, not like Rabbi Akiva, and the halacha follows Abba Shaul. And then the Rav just does point out this, like we said, all these measurements were only spoken about during the harvesting season on the threshing floor. But if you separate it in your if you're giving it out in your house during the winter season, you can give it as you desire. In that case, there's no measurement. That is the end of today's Mishna Yomi, Rabotai. Baruch Adonai Le'olam. Amen v'amen.